Coming up on Business Tonight, Nigeria makes OPEC oil and gas data submission list, ranks third best. Shell says liquefied natural gas market needs $200 billion investment to meet demand. Ivory Coast, cocoa farmers get relief over early rains. And seasonal crude draw moves oil prices higher. Many thanks for your time. I am Yemisi Lanredo. Nigeria ranks third among OPEC member countries in oil and gas sector data submission. At the OPEC Data Management Training Workshop on Monday in Abuja, OPEC Governor for Nigeria, Dr. Omar Ibrahim, disclosed that Nigeria has done well in the provision of credible data. Ibrahim says in the last 3 years, Nigeria's accuracy of data has improved tremendously. The Ministry of Petroleum Resources has been working with the relevant agencies like the CBN, National Bureau of Statistics, Debt Management Office, among others, to ensure accuracy in data collection. And Nigeria has recorded marginal increase of more than 200 million barrels in its crude reserves. Data from the Department of Petroleum Resources shows this surge has pushed up the country's reserve to 37.2 billion barrels. Meanwhile, oil and gas exploration expert Abiodun Adesoya has blamed the shortfall in joint venture funding for gross underutilization of the country's crude reserves potential. It says the 10-year shortfall in JV funding is responsible for the stagnation of oil reserves at its current level of $37 billion barrels, I beg your pardon, for about 2 years now. Well, to meet a boom in liquefied natural gas demand by 2030, more than $200 billion of investment is needed. Well, that's coming from Royal Dutch Shell, the world's top LNG trader, on Monday. The LNG market is set to continue its rapid expansion into 2020 as facilities approved for construction in the first half of the decade come in line. Well, this is a development expected to meet sharp growth in consumption of the super chilled fuel. But Shell says in its 2018 LNG outlook that a decline in spending in the sector since 2014 as a result of weaker energy prices will create a supply gap from the mid-2020s unless new investment emerge. LNG plants are complex and expensive, requiring large processing units. Unemployed youths, mostly women from 6 area councils in the FCT, have been taken through a skill acquisition program intended to make them self-reliant. 205 persons have acquired skills in pastry production, GSM phone repairs, and the production of disinfectant. The program was put together by Small and Medium Skill Development Agency SMEDAN. The beneficiaries also got 25,000 naira each as startup capital for their businesses.
If more people, more local people, are able to produce things that we can consume, we're able to conserve our resources. We are not buying things from abroad. We are providing jobs for our local community. So the economy will invariably grow.
We in the country, we know exactly that the government cannot provide all that is needed. So the distinguished happened to partner with SMEDAN in collaboration with us, the consultant, so that we train the youth and women in skill acquisition, more especially in FCT.
I will no longer take my phone to someone to repair, that of my family and the people around me. So I've learned how to repair handset, how to open handset, the tools that are involved in repairing of handset, the department of handset, so we've learned a lot.
Okay, so because there's so many women out there, not even women, youths, that are looking forward for people like those that are in position to help us, you know. But if we can, without bringing out our voices like this, with this, at least we'll go forward.
And in this vein, the Minister of Trade and Investment, Dr. Okechukwu Enelama, says the government is working to reposition the economy in 2018 with the planned launch of key growth initiatives next month. Enelama disclosed at the launch of the Anderson Tax, a global independent tax firm in Nigeria, that the move was geared towards attracting investment through public-private partnership for the development of the economy. Well, let's discuss small businesses and these kind of investment in Nigeria. Advocate and advisory for SMEs and business analyst Rufai Oseni is in the studio. Many thanks for your time, Rufai.
Well, thank you
so
much.
Yes, in the growth sector in many countries of the world, small businesses are particularly a success story. But in this climb, what's your take? Do you think SMEs have it good for them?
I think SMEs are beginning to wake up, but I know there are challenges a lot of SMEs face. Like Nigeria is not doing any better on the ease of business index. Comparative to countries like Rwanda and South Africa, you can see that there's a big gulf. But steadily, you see that the Vice President made a lot of pronouncements as regards that and said, I'm going to do a lot, hence the executive orders he's passed. And he said, you know what, we're going to help shore up small businesses. Small businesses are still struggling. A lot of multiple taxation is still a problem. It's still very difficult to be able to do business there, you know, the dearth of infrastructure, power and things like that. But the good thing about Nigeria's small businesses is the ingenuity. The ingenuity these 34 million businesses have in Nigeria, because that's the estimate of small businesses in this country. And they're constantly surmounting the challenges. They're not there yet, but they're moving one step closer every single time with the level of ingenuity. But there are factors there. I mean, laws of contract and things like that, that's a very paramount factors. It's not easy for small businesses to raise money. It's not easy for them to run. Skill is another problem. There's a skill deficit in this country. Getting viable people to be part of the business is another problem. So these are the challenges they face. But it's not the way it used to be. I mean, there's more awareness as regards this. Small businesses are tilting towards that position of productivity. And you can see the numbers are getting good over the days.
Well, we must be honest with ourselves. With the World Bank Ease of Doing Business ranking that put Nigeria up there last year, do you think it was really, really true? I know they looked at Lagos and Kano, but yeah. 2 states out of how many states in the country? 2
states, and I think pretty much what prompted that was the executive orders, you know, passed. I mean, take for instance, it's so difficult for you to even get into the country at first if you're a foreign investor to invest in a small business. And the fact that the Vice President did pass the executive order and say, okay, let's open up the economy, let's see how it moves. Lagos and Kano, pretty much because with that stats, they say it's a microcosm of the country. Pretty much the 2 biggest trading hubs are Lagos and Kano. But when you look at it, it's not pervasive. You know, other states don't have that flexibility. And that's why over the years, Nigerian government has tried to harmonize every sector and understand the challenges small businesses are facing. And what are the challenges small businesses are facing? Taxation is one. You know, access, market is another one. And they're saying, okay, let us remove those inhibitions and restrictions first and let this business start to grow. They're not there overnight. I know there are challenges. We cannot push away the fact that, take for instance, if you're in the manufacturing sector, small businesses still see hell in the hands of regulators like NAFDAC. I mean, it's difficult to be able to get approvals and things like that. But the truth of the matter is, with the government understanding this, that small businesses run every economy in the world. And small businesses are the champion of every economy. All the biggest economy in the world are run by small businesses. The revolution that happened in the business sector in Korea were run by family-owned small businesses called Shaebos. And, you know, those are the things that metamorphose in the likes of your Samsung and some other businesses like that. So government understanding this, they are opening it up. And with more push and more advocacy like we are doing, I believe that sector will open up and small businesses will be given the leeway in this country. But there are still those challenges.
Rufai, Lagos and Kano were the yardstick, but I'm sure the government should be able to do something to break that jinx, if I would use it that way. Other states must be able to also drive the small businesses. But we'll talk about that when we return from this break. Do stay with us on Business Tonight. This is Business Tonight. We're talking about small businesses and investment in Nigeria. And one thing that the government is doing is working so hard to ensure that the economic recovery and growth plan works. I've been speaking with Rufai Oseni. Yes, Rufai, the ERGP is one thing that the government has put forward to ensure the growth of the economy. But how do we replicate this? Last year, as we said earlier, Lagos and Kano were the yardstick to measure how easy business has been done in the country. But that's just 2 states out of 36 states. I mean, how does government take this ERGP to these other states?
So there has to be a multiple-pronged approach. There has to be that willingness to diffuse this approach across all the states. Why Lagos and Kano were used as yardstick? Because 2 states have the commercial viability of the country, pretty much when you look at it. Lagos, in its own regard, it's a country on its own, and Kano, the commercial heartland of the north. Take, for instance, Lagos. Lagos and Ogun and Oyo put together has about close to 30% of the GSM phone lines registered in this country. The only 3 states, about 30% of that. But the government should have a multiple-pronged approach that says, okay, we can go all over the state. And the government has been doing that from agriculture to other sectors. Take, for instance, states like KB benefited from the CBN Anchor Borrowers program for farmers. That really showed up the production of rice. And you can see with that, we've been able to cut the importation of rice drastically in this country. So other states are coming on stream. But the sweet part of the pie will always still be Lagos and Kano. But it has to be a national pronged approach because, you have 22 million population in Lagos, about 10 million population in Kano, about over 30 million population in these 2 states. It needs to permeate across all the states. So states like Ogun, states like KB, states like Gombe, and the heartland where you're having the insurgency of Boko Haram. Because I believe if there's a lot of economic empowerment in that region and small businesses are having their right of way, then the economy of the country can grow in general.
So let's talk about private sector investment in small businesses. Well, government will say government is trying to do its part of investing in small businesses, but it seems the private sector, the bigger private sector, isn't looking that way.
They are looking that way, but there are a lot of constraints. They are looking that way. They are looking at things like return on investment. They are looking at how...
You can't say they are really looking that way.
I mean, they are looking that way, but a private sector will look at his numbers first rather than national good. He wants to make money. I mean, what's the essence of going into business? To maximize profit, to impact people, and to impact your planet in general. I mean, social costs as regards business. So they're looking at that. They're looking at the market viability. But let's not take it away from that. Some private people have come into businesses. We've been able to tap, FDIs, foreign direct investment into various business ventures. Take, for instance, investment from abroad has showed up in small businesses. The rise of e-commerce space, for instance, over $190 million was invested in the last year in the e-commerce space in Nigeria. So those people are coming in, but we all know that the ease of doing business is still a stumbling block that blocks everything. Like take, for instance, if you do business with a Nigerian and you have a contract dispute, how do you get arbitration to sort that out? I mean, those are factors that are on ground and are still affecting this. But the private sector is coming in. It's not the way we want it to be. But once all of this is opened up and the regulations are opened up and the economy is opened up, then you can see businesses will grow. And that's what Trump is doing in America. What is he doing? Tax cuts. Tax break for big businesses. And through that alone, you can see he's incentivizing the economy, and the economy is moving. A lot of people want to do businesses because tax burden will go down. And these are things we should look at. Corporate tax in Nigeria is pegged about 32–35%. These are things we should look at. These are things we should think of driving down even further to be able to help small businesses. Tax breaks for small businesses. A lot of small businesses need to get tax breaks because the first 3, 4, 5 years, they are working, but they're not making enough. So you need to be able to incentivize them with tax breaks that will help them as they stand on their feet.
All right, Rufai Oseni, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you for your time on Business Tonight.
It's a joy and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Nigeria's Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has assured the Lake Chad Basin Commission of an unflagging commitment to supporting the restoration of the basin in order to pull the region back from a major economic, social and ecological disaster. He disclosed this at the International Conference on Saving the Lake Chad Basin in Abuja. State House correspondent Maria Olasendi tells us more.
The Lake Chad is about 8% of the size of Africa and is shared by Algeria, Cameroon, the Central African Republic, Chad, Libya, Nigeria, Niger, and Sudan. President Muhammadu Buhari has lent his support to the resuscitation of the Lake Chad, which is evident in the hosting of this conference. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, who represents his boss here, says concrete steps must be taken to secure the Lake Chad from extinction in the shortest possible time.
The cooperation and collaboration that underpins the efforts to save the Lake Chad must not be allowed to flag. The world will pay a steep price if stakeholders choose to resort to unilateral actions and the pursuit of selfish interests if we collectively fail to rise boldly to this challenge.
Osinbajo also commends the international community for not only seeing the Lake Chad Basin issue as a challenge with global implications, but also taking steps to actively support the efforts of the member countries of the Lake Chad Basin Commission.
Saving the Lake Chad is pulling our region back from a major economic, social, and ecological disaster. Saving the Lake Chad is restoring and preserving the livelihoods of millions, but perhaps more importantly, preserving a resource that will be crucial to the economic sustenance and security of the fastest growing population in the world.
It is important to note that saving the Lake Chad in a sustainable manner is a task which requires the collaboration of all relevant stakeholders. Therefore, all hands must be on deck to save the lake from extinction.
UNESCO's International Hydrological Program will support Chad, Cameroon, and Nigeria in integrating the African flood and drought monitor system to ensure more agile coping mechanisms for seasonal variations. This will build on the work that we are already doing through the International Hydrological Program at the Regional Center in Kaduna in Nigeria to deepen our understanding of the aquifers of the basin.
Saving and restoring the Lake Chad from dwindling is the essence of this conference. All stakeholders involved have been urged to work collectively in ensuring they overcome the challenges confronting the Lake Chad Basin Commission. Maria Olasheinde, TVC News, Abuja.
Well, 6 states have signed up to the Nigerian Export-Import Bank's Nexim $139 million Export Development Fund. Under the scheme, Nexim Bank earmarked a minimum of $2.7 million for each state towards developing 1 or 2 identified export products where the state has the highest competitive advantage. The development fund is a long-term concession loan facility designed to accelerate growth of small and medium businesses in the country. Well, the managing director of Nexim Bank, Abba Bello, says the bank will collaborate with the CBN in ensuring revival of ailing industries across the country. And the CBN's Anchor Borrowers Program will get more funding support for its $116 million Greenfield Integrated Poultry and Powderized Egg Plant. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele says the plant is in line with the CBN's determination to increase local production of critical agriculture produce and plug the supply gap in the poultry industry. Since commencement of the Anchor Borrowers Program in 2015, the CBN, in partnership with the state government and several private sector groups, have disbursed about $155 million to more than 250,000 farmers. The program has also contributed to the creation of an estimated 800,000 direct and 2.6 million indirect jobs. Well, stock trading opened the week in the positive territory as large-cap stocks made gains in different trade sectors. Effiong Gekop breaks down the numbers.
Total Nigeria PLC, operating in the oil and gas sector, lifted midday transactions at the stock exchange this Monday. Releasing its full-year results for 2017, investors ran after the company's shares to be able to participate in the dividend proposal of 14 naira per share. Earlier, Total had paid interim dividend of 3 naira per share to its investors. The financial performance of the company raised its share price on the floor to 239 naira per unit in mid-trade. And back to the trading floor, the market closed almost flat, doing just minimal upgrade. Japol Oil in the maritime sector closed business with the highest value calculated at nearly 10%. Unity Bank gained 9.40%. Domestic and industrial salt producer NASCON was up in value by 5.11%. International breweries improved its value by 5%, and Len Africa, formerly called Longman, also gained 5%. It was a dull day for Mobil, which now has a new name, Double One. It lost 5% in value. Running helicopter services for the oil and gas sector in the Niger Delta was down by 5%. Healthcare company May & Baker lost 4.91% in value, while United Capital, a subsidiary of UBA, closed business downward at 4.88%. Effiong Ekop, TVC News at the Stock Exchange.
Well, higher than normal rainfall across Ivory Coast has given cocoa farmers some sort of relief. Ivory Coast is the world's top producer, and the rain will help development of the smaller mid-crop, although wet weather tends to slow harvesting. Ivory Coast is nearing the end of its main crop, the larger of two cocoa harvests that runs from October to March. Satellite imagery from the U.S. Climate Prediction Center for February the 18th to 24th suggests well above average rainfall across the country, as well as the biggest producing regions of neighboring Ghana, the number 2 grower. And Burkina Faso is seeking a new partner to mine the world's largest manganese deposit after rights disputes thwarted 2 early attempts to develop the $1 billion project. The development of the manganese at Tambo mine was halted in 2015 following a change in leadership in the West African country. While the manganese project has been dogged by delays, Burkina Faso has seen a surge in gold mining in the past decade. With an estimated reserves of 100 million metric tons, Tambo is the world's largest resource of manganese. Gold accounted for 8.5% of the country's GDP in 2015, with the latest figure available. And crude oil prices hinge higher Monday following another counter-seasonal surprise crude draw, which analysts interpret as a sign of rebalancing in the oil market. At the London market, the Brent crude trades upward at $66 a barrel, and the OPEC basket brand trades up to $63 a barrel. And that's business tonight. Many thanks for your time. I am Yemisi Lanredo. Good night.